Excellency, Professor Hanish William, Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation in Egypt. Excellency, Ms. Fatima Kmasi, Head of Cabinet, Ministry of Agriculture, Tunisia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen here in presence and who are watching us online. Gives me a great pleasure actually to welcome you here today in this very special event, a very special occasion that we are concluding our side events as Prima within this Mediterranean pavilion here in COP27 in Egypt. All this together, we are concluding this with a very special event and a very special guest and very special participation. Today's topic will be about the Wi-Fi Nexus, Water, Energy, Food Ecosystem Nexus, as an adaptation strategy to tackle climate change, which, as it may sound, very important and very critical topic, urgently needed, especially in the Mediterranean. So we are looking forward to listening to our speakers, our distinguished speakers, about their expertise and experiences in this field. Time is very tight, unfortunately, so I would kindly ask His Excellency Professor Hannes William to give his welcome speech. Your Excellency, please.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, actually, thank you very much for the invitation and thank you for the introduction. I am a minister and supposed to read a welcome statement, but I am today professor. And I want just to give a presentation because I'm also an academician coming from scientific background. And speaking about the Nexus, because it's very difficult to be in a Nexus event without really speaking about the contents, about the technical components of the Nexus, especially when it comes to the level. As you know, the water, energy, food in the ecosystem is very important, and especially when we speak here about achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and the SDGs. I don't think you can exclude any one of the 17 SDGs when you think about water, energy, and food. All of them are interrelated and all of them are connected either to water, energy, or food, or all of them together. And of course, in protecting the ecosystem and taking care of the environmental impacts. So, about Egypt and the region and other similar countries in Africa and in other continents, as you can see here, this is the situation of water in Egypt. On the y-axis, you can see the water share per capita per year, and on the x-axis, you see the years. If you go to the year 2022, you will realize that the water share per capita is slightly above 500. Which is almost 50% of the water poverty line. And you know the water poverty line is 1,000 cubic meter per capita per year. So Egypt, like Tunisia, like Oman, like United Arab Emirates, like many other countries in the region, they have the same problem. They have the water scarcity. And even Jordan, the water share per capita per year is 100 cubic meter. So when you think about climate change and adding the hydrological extremes dimension and how this drought is going to be worse in the future, then you have to think how we are going to solve this. Solving means finding this green part that will cover the gap to reach the minimum of water requirements per capita per year. There are people speaking, of course, about water recycling, saving water, efficient use of water, but that's all not enough. So we have to find new resources, new water resources. So here we are speaking about the nexus, the interrelationship between water, energy, food, and ecosystem. At the global level, we have to follow this in order to tackle the water problem, but at the global level in order to achieve the SDGs together. At the regional level, when you think about water, when you think about transboundary cooperation, the Nile case. The Nile case is about generating hydropower in the upstream in Ethiopia based on the water. So it's a water energy nexus issue. And then the Egyptian, the Sudanese waiting for the water for their food. So it's a water, energy, food issue. And building dams with all its ecological impact. So it's a water, energy, food ecosystem at the regional level. When you come to the national level, there is always a relationship between the water, energy, and food. If you want to feed the people and reach the food security, you have to secure your water resources. And the water resources are dependent in energy in the case of in the case of desalination or recycling. And it's intensive water processes. When it comes to the technological level, which is a part I want to focus on today, we have to find technological solutions on the ground in order to solve the water challenge issue. This is the model I want to present today, and this is what I did before being a minister in the last, let me say, 10 years plus many other things. So what you see here is a renewable energy component. Anyway, the PV system as one of the renewable energy components that can generate energy in a more sustainable manner. And then you use it for desalinating water, and I'm sure most of you are coming from the technical background, so you know desalination is just separating the water from the salt. We just separate the water from the salt. And it's not that easy, because the desalination has two main problems. First, the energy consumption. Second, the byproduct that is produced. So you have to find solution for both of them. I think globally we are very close to solve the first one, which is the energy component. But what about the second one, the byproduct of desalination? And desalination for drinking, it is not an issue in terms of technology. It works. We drink water today in many cities on Earth based on desalination. But desalination for food production, it's not yet commercially visible. So now we started this model to use the desalinated water for food production, but also find the solution for the byproduct. What happened with this model? I can just explain it in 5 minutes. I have to divide it to 3 main subsystems. The first subsystem is connecting renewable energy to the desalination. The second subsystem is using the water from the desalination in maximizing the food production. And the third subsystem is how we are going to deal with the byproduct, the section or the part at the bottom of the screen, how we can use the water for byproduct, the brine or the byproduct for producing products that add an economical value to this byproduct so that the people cannot or should not dispose it. So the first part, we started here with new technology of desalination. I think you might heard of it. It's called forward osmosis, which is trying to separate the water from the salt playing with the osmotic pressure so that we can minimize the energy consumption, and it opens the door for us to use renewable energies. And this is the bench scale, connecting it to the PV, and this is the semi-commercial or the pilot scale unit that we had here in Cairo. So, but when you produce water like this, it's still expensive. Even if you minimize the cost of energy, it's still quite expensive. So are you going to use it in a traditional agriculture, and you know that this water footprint, that cup of coffee requires 140 liters of water, doesn't work. Even with this very little amount of money for this amount of water, and you multiply it by 140 liters, and then if you go to wheat, for example, when you need 1,200 or 1,300 liters of water, it's not economically visible, even with such a very low energy consumption. And if you speak about food, here we're speaking about 1 kilogram of fish requires 25,000 liters of water. It's going to be too expensive fish. So what you have to do is to change the agriculture way or the aquaculture approach to produce more with less. So when you think about desalination in the future, then you have to have super intensive production of each unit of water so that it makes sense in the future, and move from this type of aquaculture on the left side to that type of aquaculture on the right side. So you can reach 200 kilogram per cubic meter. I don't want to say 360 is already recorded in the literature, but let us stay with lower number. So you move from this type of agriculture to that type of agriculture, the super intensive food production per each drop of water. So that's why we believe that desalination could make sense, and that's why, go back to my model or our model, subsystem B. After the desalination, we use the water for fish production, the normal hydroponic system or aquaponics in this case. You produce fish, and with the same amount of water, you take the waste for the crops, so they produce also crops with the same. This is the picture that we had in our model. Now, this is the real picture. It's not picture from the internet. What you see on the left side is the water coming from the desalination for super intensive fish production, and what you see on the right side is using this water with the effluent of the fish for irrigating this crop and producing organic food. So this is the RAS, or recirculating aquaculture system, and we have a small model of this under the American University in Cairo in the green zone. You can just visit it. I'm not supervising it anymore, but I think the new generation is doing that now. Then we can, with this approach, reduce the water footprint of the fish from the 25,000 to 300 liters per kilogram, or even less than this. So that's of course, you can do it with all the products. You can do it with the tomato, you can do it with other crops, but depending on what crops can grow in the hydroponic system. So this is the pictures of the model, how the PV connected to the desalination, and how this is connected to the water and food. What about the byproduct? And I'm sure the experts of desalination are waiting for me now, because this is the most challenging component. What are you going to do with the byproduct? So the byproduct here is a water with a very high salinity content. So what you can use it for? People are disposing it in the sea everywhere in the region. Brine is disposed back to the sea, or the worst ever is injected under the ground. So there is no yet solution for the brine. We have been working over the last 6-7 years only for this component. We tried to find what is economically visible to produce out of this brine. So we found the artemia. The artemia is this small animal that you can see. The people, they know the aquaculture, of course, they know it, that can tolerate the high salinity. 100,000 ppm, 200 sometimes, or even more than that. And normally we export it in our we import it in our country from the Salt Lake in the US, or from any other place that it grows naturally. So we have been trying over the 4 years to adopt the artemia in the water. The with video is not working, but I just wanted to show you that today in the desalination brine, artemia is growing and even getting the next generation after having the maturity phase in the brine. We also introduced algae, nanochlorapsis here, and we have 2 publications on both of them. And now we are going to the semi-commercial level, and we are discussing with industry, signing contract specifically for the artemia to upscale it in different locations here in Egypt. So the conclusion of this, that with each unit of water that's coming from the desalination, either it's going to cost you 30 US cents, 40 or 50, but you will be able to produce different products out of each unit of water that will bring this money back and even make profit for the farmer or the investor or the entrepreneur. These are some of the publications describing this model. I will leave it for a second so that if you want to make photos and make sure that this is evidence-based presentation and not political presentation. So this is the second list of publications. You can just make a picture, and this is the third one. So if you, and this is the fourth one for the publications specifically on this model. So we have to build generations, we have to train people so that they can stand here, have another position. The work is running, the lab is running, the commercial model. So we developed the graduate program in sustainable development. We teach the students this, how they deal, as one of course of many other courses. This program is ranked #1 in Africa, and it's offered by, I used to work at the Aachen University in Germany, at the same time a professor at the American University here in Egypt, in Cairo. So this is the model, and these are our graduates. I'm sure you will meet them here every corner, because these are the people, they understand the meaning of biodiversity, sustainability, and climate change. These are the team worked with me. All of them, the average age is below 30, and you might see some of them here. And this is a model that works. I thank you very much, and I leave you here with the virtual tour in this model, and you can see the model in the reality, how it looks like. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed, Your Excellency, for this excellent presentation and for reminding us, or me personally, with Professor Hani Swilliam, the professor, the scientist, not the minister, with all due respect, of course, for both cases. I mean, we have a long time relationships with Professor Hani in Prima, and he's a very close friend to Prima, and even before he was very active in the Euromed collaboration. Thank you so much again, and I'll give the floor and kindly ask Ms. Let's see, Fatin Khmasi for her speech. Thank you very much, please.
Good morning. It's very hard to talk after Mr. Minister. My pleasure. Donc, Mr. Hani Swilliam, Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation of Egypt. Mr. Octavie Quintena, the Director of Prima Program. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you today in this opening of the work of this side event dealing with water, energy, food ecosystems, Nexus approach. I take this opportunity to thank Prima for having initiated this subject, which is very important for our Mediterranean countries. To express my consideration to the organizers of this event and welcome to all participants. Honorable guests, the revisit nationally determined contribution, NDC, for Tunisia indicates that our economy and population and all ecosystems are highly vulnerable to climate change. Our country is expected to see shrinking of agricultural land areas due to increasing water scarcity and declining yields of about 5 to 10 by as early as 2030, notably for cereals and livestock. Tunisia's third national communication 2019 and likely increases in droughts and floods will have significant negative impact on food security. The National Communication 2018 and revised NDC clearly indicate that agriculture, forestry and land use, in addition to the littoral and the most vulnerable to climate change and climate variability impacts. Therefore, the present program targets the most vulnerable regions and communities to climate change in Tunisia, the center, the south, and the littoral. In order to achieve large-scale impacts, the project's planned interventions were determined based on the climate change challenges of each region, and a strategic arrangement took into consideration the linkage between the projects. In our Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources and Fisheries, we have a program, a priority program was developed based on these three standalone projects. The main objectives of this structure is to secure greater impact and ensure a horizontal and vertical integration of climate change and challenges into national policies and planning, all policy planning. The three stand-alone projects are towards a climate resilient agriculture and livelihoods in southern Tunisia, water, food and energy nexus approach to address climate change impact in central Tunisia, and ecosystem regeneration for resilient coasts in Tunisia. The three proposed projects were designed to complement the ongoing climate change focus project, mainly the climate change adaptation program, and also integrate landscape management program in lagging region, especially a World Bank program. Following a strategic and coordinated approach, this program will help Tunisia to enhance the sector-wide transformation and address barriers to moving economic sectors onto a sustainable, ecological and socio-economic path. More importantly, this programmatic approach will provide opportunities to maximize synergies between CGF projects while being cost-effective, and will seek the maximized adaptation and mitigation co-benefits. This programmatic approach is results-oriented. The first project aims at building the resilience of smallholder farmers and ecosystems to current and future climate changes through an integrated set of climate-sensitive water, land, and livelihood approaches and practices. For the second project, the paradigm shift instrumented through water, food, and energy nexus approach is expected to have a significant positive impact and well-being and resilience of both the local community and its ecosystems in the semi-arid area of central of Tunisia to current and future climate change impacts. These two projects are adaptation focused with mitigation co-benefits. As for the last project, it mainly aims at enhancing the resilience of the coastal communities through the coastal ecosystems regenerations. In parallel, a national adaptation plan readiness project was launched on August 2021. The SNAP food security in Tunisia aimed to improve food security and agriculture resilience to climate change. I will contribute to the overview objective of the national strategy on climate change to integrate Nexus approaches toward achieving sustainable food security and agriculture in Tunisia and enhancing the resilience of the vulnerable population and ecosystems to climate change. These projects aims to generate adaptation options in the agriculture sector, water, land, crops, livestock, fisheries, and forestry, and investment priorities, and strengthen the enable framework for adaptation planning, including all the roles on all stakeholders, especially, and also NGO, such also the private sectors. Activities and deliverables will be integrated with ongoing and future policies and agriculture and agribusiness strategy. The main projects activities are the support of the government of Tunisia, effort to enhance the resilience of the agriculture and agribusiness sectors. The second is to sustain food security over time, and the third, contribute to alleviating poverty through agriculture or agricultural intervention, mainly safety nets and innovations. To this end, the project aims to achieve the following three outcomes. First, climate change adaptation. So, based on knowledge, strength for improved decision making. The second, resilience of agriculture sector and food security, enhancing by climate smart investments through public-private partnerships. And the third, adaptation of the most vulnerable rural communities, strengthened through safety nets and digital innovation, as mentioned. Thank you very much, and I am very pleased to be with you and to hear your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fatin, for sharing your thoughts. Very interesting and very important thoughts. I hate to say this, but due to technical issues and to limitations that are put on us, we have to go fast. So we start our panel immediately, and I kindly ask my experts, my speakers now, to even give us the extract of the extract. So 3 to 4 minutes maximum, and I really apologize for that, but due to time constraint, we need to go fast. So we start first with Mr. Ian Martinson, Head of Unit, Water and Marine Resources Directorate, General Joint Research Center. He will be joining us on time. And then there will be a slight change. We will go with Mr. Rafiq very quickly and Mr. Rashid, if you don't mind, other speakers, because they have to catch another event. So please, Mr. Ian, if ready, the floor is yours.
Actually, I cannot activate my camera. So if somebody would do that for me.
We can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Well, that is, hello?
Yes, yes, Ian.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and I cannot activate my camera because this is in your hands, but it doesn't matter. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, I wish for all of you, first of all, a good morning. And I'm really glad we have witnessed very interesting and encouraging speeches already this morning. And I would like to thank Prima for organizing this session in the COP27 frame on the water, energy, food and ecosystem nexus, which discusses a challenge and a big opportunity at the same time. My name is Jan Martinson. I'm working for the European Commission Joint Research Center. We are actually the scientific arm of the European Commission and provide best available scientific advice to all EU policies, including climate change understanding and adaptation. Well, it seems that we are currently moving from one crisis into the next, literally. I mean, war and epidemics dominate our news. This morning, again, with rockets having hit Polish territories. And yet, underneath, we are confronted with a looming and yet imminent existential threat. And I would say this is not only climate change. I think we are actually dealing with a triple crisis made of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity decline. These three crises, indeed, form an interconnected mega threat, I would call it, a nexus in itself, in a way, and a threat that we need to act upon right now. To prove this, the latest UNEP emissions gap report has a clear message for us. We are failing currently to limit the global warming to well below 2 degrees centigrade. The window is closing. We don't have time for incremental changes. We need to act now and very swiftly. And yet, not all is gloom and doom. I mean, we have heard this morning also. We have opportunities for change at our hand, and we need to grab those. And the climate crisis really, literally, and very obviously calls for rapid transformation of our societies, our economy. And here, the Nexus approach to the management of water, energy, food production, and also the protection of ecosystem resources is key. And I think this is particularly also true for the Mediterranean region, which is, of course, severely affected by climate change. Now, I believe the challenge for scientists such as myself is to fill the prevailing communication gap with decision makers. We need to demonstrate the benefits of managing resources as an interconnected continuum, as opposed to the single resource planning we see at the moment most of the time. And I believe to achieve this, we need to identify successful demonstration cases in the Mediterranean region and provide convincing examples that we render locally available to decision-making bodies, while at the same time we actually overcome institutional and administrative borders. And this is exactly the objective, by the way, of the WFID Nexus community of practice for the Mediterranean region that was just launched by Prima, and where I'm very happy that we can contribute. Now, from the European Union perspective, an interconnected Nexus approach is essential for the implementation of the European Green Deal, the climate law, our zero pollution action plan, the biodiversity strategy, and also we wish to contribute to make the Mediterranean region more resilient and prosperous. It is in this context that we at the Joint Research Center actually operate. We will ensure that the water, energy, food, and ecosystem nexus approach for the Mediterranean is based on best available data and science, and that it is linked to governance and policy fostering climate change adaptation in the Mediterranean region. Moreover, together with our partners, we make sure that culture in its really remarkable diversity across the Mediterranean region and citizens, that means all of us, are fully integrated in the uptake and application of research and innovation under the WFID Nexus concept. An example here is provided by the Gateway to the Future of the Mediterranean. Maybe you can see this here. This is a very modern interactive report with online features also on the meaning and value of the water, energy, food, and ecosystem nexus approach for the Mediterranean. We will publish it together with our partners, and there are many of them in the coming days. With this, I would like to conclude. I would thank you for listening to me, and I wish all of us that we use the COP27 successfully to move from words and pleas to action. And I'm sure that we, coordinated by Prima, will make a valuable contribution there. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Ian, and I'm sure, and we will make sure to follow your recommendation. We'll go immediately to Mr. Rafiq Aini, Ministry of Agriculture, Tunisia. So please, 3 to 4 minutes, Mr. Rafiq. Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much. Is it possible to? Yeah, please. And I can say next, or I can. Thank you very much. First of all, good morning, colleagues. Sabah al-Khir. Bonjour, tout le monde. First of all, I want to thank government of Egypt and people of Egypt for hosting us at this beautiful city, Sharm el-Sheikh. Thank you very much for that. And also for Prima for this event. So I will speak for the subject of food security and adaptation priorities in the agriculture sector in Tunisia. Huh? No, it's not this. Voilà. So the efforts of Tunisia in adaptation. So as you know, as you may know, Tunisia is engaged to contribute to an effective implementation of the UNFCCC and to mobilize all possibility of instruments in fighting against climate change. As a low-emitting country, but vulnerable to the negative effects of climate change, Tunisia has developed several national strategies to address climate change. And Tunisia, from the NDC to NDC, and now revised NDC, and now elaborating the long-term strategy and resilient. we are in process for all UNFCCC targets. However, this is still insufficient to adapt agriculture to climate change in order to ensure the sustainability of the sector and guarantee the population food security. So, the main objective for our NAP is to integrate climate change risks and adaptation needs into development planning and financing, and should therefore be aligned to the country priorities. So to address barriers that prevent the implementation of transformational changes across sectors, and besides the proposal of NAP in food security, Tunisia is developing 2 other NAPs. But these NAPs are integrated. The 3 NAPs are integrated, and the first one is the NAP framework for socio-economic development policies, and the other one for development planning and land use planning. We have a steering committee to coordinate. We have a steering committee, and we get from GCF readiness for $3 million, each one for 1 million. So why enough food security in agriculture in Tunisia? You see some numbers. So agriculture sector, 10% of GDP, 16% of employment, all of this. And agri-food industry, we 3% of GDP, 20% of industrial added value, and employs 18% of Tunisian force work. And for food security, the ranks of Tunisia, it's shown here. So, the process. At the beginning, with the initiative Adapt Action with the AFD from France, the preparatory phase of NAP process was done, and we identified 5 main strategy fields: cereal crops, arboriculture, olive plantations, water, pasture, as a provider of meat and milk, and fisheries. Consequently, 3 equipment were identified as priority. As Madame Chef de Cabinet said before that the climate change adaptation knowledge, resilience is a PPP process, and climate change adaptation for the most vulnerable rural community, ensuring through safety nets and digital innovation. Is it okay?
Sorry, Mr. Rafiq, to interrupt, but we need to close.
Yeah, just. So we identified many barriers as lack of enabling environment, insufficient resource and knowledge, implement and maintain innovation, limit access of local farmers to financial capital. It's very, very critical, this, and limit participation of farmers and local governance, and insufficient role of application of the private sector. With paradigm shift, if you have time, I can try to show you.
Yeah, unfortunately, time run out.
Okay. So there is a paradigm shift in the theory of change. All these things to go directly to Nexus, energy, water, and food security is the main pillar in our NAP. And it's ensured by the strategy of water, long-term strategy of water in Tunisia. It shows also that Nexus is a pillar for the. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tariq, very much, and I really apologize again. Go straightly to my next speaker, please, Mr. Rashid Tahiri, from Direction of Climate Change, Morocco, please.
it's a pleasure for me to be with you today in order to participate at this interesting side event, also at these lovely pavilions. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Egypt for hosting this COP. So we count a lot on the Egypt's presidency in order to have a concrete outcomes in this COP. These outcomes should reflect the priority of African countries. So, as you know, all of us, that's building environmental and socio-economic resilience to climate change requires proactive, long-term and integrated planning, addressing root causes of vulnerability and guiding the country in terms of sustainable development manner. Also, NAPS is a commitment towards UNFCCC, especially the Paris Agreement and Article 7, Para 9. That's why Morocco, as Tunisia, has established its NAP, National Strategy Action Plan. Why Morocco elaborates NAPS? Also to inform about climate policy implementation on adaptation, also about the co-benefits of mitigation, and included the Nexus water, energy, agriculture, and sustainable development. Also, we intend draw our NAPS to ensure the convergence and the coherence between different projects and programs at national level, also at territorial levels. For instance, in Morocco, we have national strategy for sustainable development, so we have SDGs and national plans. So NAPS is an opportunity to ensure the coherence and the convergence. So each plan has its own vision and also its own objectives. So our vision is by 2030 we have a strategic approach to increase the resilience of natural and social system to the impacts of climate change. And we have four targets or objectives that we have fixed is to achieve the quantified sectoral climate change adaptation targets. Also, we enhance the resilience of population and territories, and also we mobilize international technical and financial support. That's why we are here to exchange our programs and our priorities, and also the NAPS is an opportunity for enhancing the political will and support. So our plan is aligned with our national strategy for natural disaster risk management. So there is a lot of major axes like the strengthening natural risk management governance, the prevention of natural risks and strengthening resilience, also the promotion of scientific research. And I was very impressed by the presentation of the colleague from Egypt. In our national plan, we have 5 axes. So the governance, another one regarding the information on the climate knowledge, the assessment, prevention and the reduction of vulnerability, the resilience of sensitive resources and ecosystems, and the last one regarding the resilience of production sectors. So I will develop each axe. So the governance is intended to mobilize relevant political and institutional support, adjust standards and regulation to adapt climate change, also establish good governance at territorial level. Also, we can't implement our actions regarding adaptation without the involvement of private sector and also without the involvement of the civil society. Another one regarding the just I will circulate this presentation with you to inform you about all the major priorities regarding our national plan. So last one regarding so in order to implement our NAP, so we have many ways to do that. First of all is the prioritization of adaptation action, and also developing a funding strategy, because we can't implement without having enough financial resources. So we are working on setting up a strategy of finance to implement our NAPs. Also, there is another one, last one, regarding projects with GCF in order to implement these NAPs at regional level. We have 5 regions, and we intend to promote action of adaptation at regional level, and also we intend to promote the involvement of private sectors. And we are the nexus of energy, water, agriculture is among our priorities in NDC, in NAPS, and also in Morocco with under the king, the leadership of our king. We have set up a new model of socioeconomic, and the nexus of water, energy, and agriculture is a priority for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We move to our next speaker, Mr. Khalid Salmi, who will be presenting on behalf of RICRI Egypt. So please. Pointer, please.
Thank you all. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be present with you and to also share our insights and perspective on this very important topic, which is dealing with the link between water and energy sectors and their impacts on the socio-economic levels of the countries. I'm speaking today on behalf of Dr. Jawad Kharraz, who is the Executive Director of the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. He apologized because he had an urgent commitment in the plenary session to give a statement on behalf of our organization. Actually, I have several slides to present, and I have 3 minutes, so I can't do that. I will just deliver some messages, because today we have some representatives from the academia from several sectors, but the most important thing that we have representatives from the public sector from our countries, from Morocco, from Tunisia, and from Egypt, His Excellency Professor Hani Swilem. Actually, as one of the young Arab people and African people also, I will speak on the very real challenges that we are facing in our countries in those sectors. There is a link between energy, there is a link between water and energy and food, sorry. There is strategies, there is plans, there is action plans and so on. But I think we need to move to reality. We need also in light and to be aligned with the COP27 orientation, which is about implementation. We need to implement real actions to move to real actions. My direct messages will be axed around 3 main points. The first one, we need to have more or to focus more on the governance and management between all considered ministries for energy, for water, for food, agriculture, and so on. My second message will be also directed to the academia. We need to put more efforts on the research and development activities dedicated to find new solutions for example, irrigation sectors, for example, cold storage. There is many areas of improvement that we can identify and we can build on to establish and design new projects that can help really this this link and this nexus between energy and water nexus. Currently in the MENA region, which the region we are serving, there is 65 million people who don't have access to electricity. More than that, don't have access to clean water. I think we need to really think on this and to find real solutions for those real issues and challenges. Also, to maximize the socio-economic profits from those sectors, we need to think about the inclusion of youth, inclusion of women, and also to create more jobs, building on those challenges. We can translate those challenges into other opportunities, into other development opportunities in our nation, and also in the country level. We have talents in our region. We have youth who have very innovative ideas to directly address those challenges. I think we need to organize more dialogues between the public sector and the private sector, and also the financing and the development banks, to provide real financing tools and channels, especially and with special focus to the startups of young people who can really address the challenges in those sectors, and also create more jobs for the social development of our nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we move to our next speaker online, Ms. Fabi Konduri from Athens University of Economics and Business.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I start immediately. I'm very happy to address again the Mediterranean Pavilion at the COP. My first address was physical. I spent the first week of COP in presence, and today I will be speaking about a project called Awesome and funded by Prima. And Awesome is exactly on bringing together the water, food, energy, and ecosystems Nexus in a decision analytic framework that can be the basis for a science-driven implementation in various areas within the Mediterranean basin. And this is what exactly COP27 is looking for. Science-based implementation and full transparency. This will accelerate our transition to climate neutrality and climate resilience. And not only that, but it will help us face the different accumulating crises that we are facing: the pandemic, the economic crisis, the climate change crisis, the biodiversity collapse crisis, the war now. And our blueprint out of this crisis are the SDGs. The SDGs, UN Agenda 2030, is a very holistic framework which allows us to build a systemic structure, systemic, holistic, integrated pathways out of the crisis. And this is what exactly Prima is accelerating. If you look at the different SDGs that are connected with the water, food, and energy SDGs, these are all the SDGs. So we really need a very holistic, systemic, integrated structure. And this is what is supported by Awesome, but also by other water, food, energy, and biodiversity Nexus projects that we run. You can also see that in the Sustainable Development Report 2022 that we publish as United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the food achievement of the relevant SDG. The achievement of the SDG on zero hunger is very low. Where you see red and orange, you really have significant challenges in implementing the SDG. And you can see that we also have challenges in the map for affordable and clean energy SDG, and also for the clean water and sanitation SDG. So the water, food, energy Nexus is challenged across the world and within the Mediterranean basin in terms of really implemented pathways that can sustainably manage this Nexus. I direct the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on IFORIA that includes 5 different research institutions, 4 accelerators, and works very closely with global and European networks that I co-chair or lead. And in this structure, we really focus on water, food, energy, and biodiversity nexus, smart agriculture, and smart urban water projects. And we have a big portfolio of projects on these issues among portfolios of other issues. The OSAM project develops a decision analytic framework for managing water ecosystems, focusing across sectors in the southern Mediterranean region. So water, ecosystems, and food put together in a decision analytic framework that actually develops very detailed but specific implementation guidelines for the solution towards sustainable use of water, food, and energy nexus across geospatial scales and across time. The project is led by Politecnico de Milano. Professor Andrea Castelletti is the coordinator, and I am part of it as the leading scientist from the leading professor from the Athens University of Economics and Business. In Greece, we have 7 partners, 5 different countries, and we focus on 3 levels: the micro level, exploring effectiveness of alternative smart food production options, hydroponics, aquaculture, and aquaponics. It is very important to understand that this is a multidisciplinary project putting together engineers, biologists, economists, stakeholder analysts. Our second level of analysis is the meso level, exploring integration and upscaling of smart food technologies in river basin. And our third scale is the macro level, generating future population, food, energy, and water scenarios and regional policies to the meso scale. So what we try to do in terms of the integrated modeling, that is, I emphasize, very directly implementable, and I'm finishing now, is that we create future scenarios incorporating demographics, crop water modeling, energy modeling, ecosystem services modeling, all based on representative concentration pathways and socioeconomic pathways within the climate change. And finally, we downscale this to various case studies. The one that I'm going to show in my last slide is the one in Nile, where we identify challenges as population growth, climate change, transparency agreements, water management measures, threats for water availability and ecosystem services, food security, and economic development. And we identified through our simulation models strategic measures for improvement of water efficiency in terms of desalination expansion in coastal and remote areas, pumping of groundwater sustainably, expanding greenhouse cultivation, and promoting less consuming and salt-tolerant, and everything done with a very vivid stakeholder co-design procedure. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I know that AWESOME is one of the awesome projects that PRIMA is supporting. Moving quickly to some concluding remarks by Mr. Panagitos Palapenis from the European Commission, Head of Water Sector. Floor is yours, if ready, please. Online, he's joining us online.
From my side, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I would like also to warmly thank all the speakers for the very interesting also presentations. It is, of course, very difficult, to be very extensive, but I would like just to highlight, a few messages. First of all, Minister Professor Seoulami, Minister for Water Resources in Egypt, also highlighted also an example of putting also the Nexus in practice, in particular also focusing on the desalination and the advantages of desalination, in particular for water resources scarcity, also addressing in Egypt, and in particular also addressing also the food security, and also highlighting that the business opportunities could be also possible to compensate also the cost of desalination. Mrs. also Kamasi from the Ministry of Agriculture in Tunisia also stressed the importance that Tunisia gives also to the climate change adaptation, and also stressed that the Nexus approach expects also to have also significant also impacts to local communities and consistent also to provide also co-benefits, in particular also for resilience of agricultural sector, but also the adaptation to the rural community. Jan Martinson from Joint Research Center also highlighted also the importance of the Nexus also in particular also for regions severely affected, you know, by the climate crisis, in particular also the Mediterranean, and also the mention also the focus, the policy relevance of this Nexus for European policies, and highlighted also examples that the Joint Research Center developed also to show the value of water energy Nexus in the Mediterranean. Mrs. Rafi from Tunisia also provided the example of the national action and plan approaches in Tunisia, and highlighted also the two dimensions focusing on the development, the economic development and the planning and the land use planning. Then we have also Mr. Tahiri also mentioned the national action plans, in particular also focusing on the long-term, the integrated planning that it is needed also, and also the highlighted also the components of this strategic framework that they used, highlighting also the importance also of the governance, you know, the assessment of vulnerabilities, resilience to sensitive, to the productive also sectors, and etc. And then we have the representative, Mr. Salmi from the RECRE institution, also stressed the need that we have also to implement now. We have a lot of knowledge, but we make also an effort, you know, to implement these Nexus approaches to the reality. And he also highlighted also the need to have more focus on the governance, in particular also between the different policy areas, the different ministries also to work together. And the he also mentioned the important roles of the inclusion of the youth and humans also, to maximize also the impacts, and also to increase also the business opportunities. And finally, last but not least, also Professor Konduri also stressed that, you know, we need also to have what we call, you know, science-based implementation and transparency in our decisions, and the Nexus approach provides also this characteristic. And so she highlighted also in particular the projects, the Hours Some project, which is focused on the decision support systems, also addressing also the management of the Nexus approaches, which is in particular focus.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you, but they will cut us off in 2 minutes. So thank you so much. We go straightly to the critical moment of the prizes of Prima Nexus prizes of Prima, and I will just go straight to announcing the winners here. This is the second year that Prima is providing this kind of prize for those who are active in the Nexus in the region. So the first prize, we have two prizes today. The first one goes to His Excellency Minister Professor Hani Swalem for the people's model that was presenting connecting water, energy, food, innovation for social empowerment. So I would kindly ask also Director Octavi to hand in the prize, please.
I just want to say that I got the prize before being a minister, so it's not biased.
Well, thank you. As I said, he was a very close and old friend to Prima, so before he became a minister. The second prize goes to Mr. Atif Al-Jouani from Tunis, from the Higher Institute for Applied Biological Sciences, University of Tunis. Mr. Atif. And with this, we conclude. So, I have 5 seconds. Well, thanks for everybody for being here, for the speakers, and apologize for the time restriction. Thank you so much. Yeah, a group photo for the speakers, please.